Hello and welcome to this presentation on the economic impact of tariffs. A tariff is a tax on an import. It raises the price of an imported good. And we're going to look at the welfare implications associated with this tax. What we're going to do first of all is look at a situation in which there is no trade with the outside world. This particular country is going to supply all that its consumers require. So SDOM is the domestic supply curve. It's equivalent to a marginal cost curve. And DDOM is the demand by domestic consumers. If there was no trade, then we would get equilibrium where the demand intersected with the supply curve. However, it just so happens that this particular country is part of the globalized world and it accepts trade from the rest of the world. Indeed, in this particular product, it can obtain an infinite amount of the particular good in concern. We'll assume that it's wheat, and it can actually get this wheat at a price PW. Clearly, this has quite important implications for domestic wheat growers. You can see that domestic wheat growers could only supply 0Q1. There are only a few suppliers up to Q1 who are willing to supply this particular product at a price below PW. The demand in the economy at this price of PW is OQ2. So the imports are Q1, Q2. The equilibrium now with free trade means that prices have fallen and quantities have risen. But demand is equal to world supply, S world. So price PW and Q2 is the equilibrium price and quantity. However, let's assume that the wheat growers in this particular country are a little unhappy, and they force the government to put up a tariff, a tax on imports of wheat. And we'll assume that that tariff is given by the sum called tariff in the diagram in front of you. So that now the world price has gone up to PW plus T, the price of the tariff, the tax on the imports of wheat. So clearly this has some impact on the nature of the market. What we now find is that domestic suppliers increased to 0Q3 and demand is 0Q4. You can clearly see that demand has fallen from Q2 to Q4. There are a number of implications of this new equilibrium position, the new equilibrium being PW plus T, the price, and Q4 being the quantity demanded and supplied at this price plus the tariff. In the diagram before you, what you'll see is that the consumer surplus, which before the tariff was A, B, C, has now shrunk to A, D, E. And that means that there's been a loss of consumer surplus equal to the area EDBC. So how are we going to allocate these changes in consumer surplus? Well, we're going to divide the welfare loss into four elements. Area 1 equals a gain in producer surplus. Clearly now, more domestic suppliers can supply this product at the higher price of PW plus T. So there's a gain in supply of Q1, Q3, and those particular suppliers have a gain equal to area 1. There is also a gain for the government in the sense that now imports are Q3, Q4. Remember that before the tariff, imports at the lower price for Q1, Q2, but now imports with the tariff are Q3, Q4. Now, this international supply, these imports, each one of these tons of wheat has to bear a tax, a tariff. And so the tariff revenue is equivalent to area 3. So what about areas 2 and 4? Well, area 2 represents the productive inefficiency of our domestic suppliers. Effectively, the tariff has stopped world imports from coming in, at least to the tune of Q1, Q3, and that represents a productive efficiency loss for society. Okay, our domestic wheat growers have gained extra revenue because now prices are up from PW to PW plus T, and the quantities have increased from Q1 to Q3, but they're producing at a much higher cost. Remember that the world suppliers could have produced Q1, Q3 at a cost of PW. So society and domestic consumers in that sense are suffering because of that. Area 4 is a loss to society because now we've got lower quantities in the market. The equilibrium price was originally PW before the tariff, and now it's PW plus T, and that's led to a reduction in quantity demanded and supplied from Q2 to Q4. The other point of note here is that there were consumers between D and B who were willing to pay a price below PW plus T, but no longer want to buy this product. So they have been adversely affected. So there we see the overall impacts of a tariff. So when a country imposes a tariff, it raises prices, reduces quantities, and causes welfare losses. So by deduction, it implies that if we reduce tariffs, this should be beneficial for society.